Welcome back, saucers.
Welcome back, players.
How was your happy Indigenous Day? How was your Indigenous Thanksgiving, Indigenous Day, Native American Day of Remembrance?
Yes, and in honor.
And in honor.
The most, and you know, Thanksgiving has become, obviously, come to represent something beautiful, time with family, being with loved ones, sharing a meal. All that is great. Mm-hmm. The roots of it are arguably the most fucked up of all of our holidays, and we got some doozies. But
we sure do, Molly.
We sure do.
We sure do. Yeah, we've been following this story for a little bit, and I feel like this is a good time to kind of work this story in to talk about, because it's definitely not being talked about enough. No,
it's not.
A friend had clued me into this, and I was like, I'm not surprised, but I cannot believe this is going on and it's not being talked about to the degree it is.
Right.
There's like a podcast called This Land that does a really good job. So check out their podcast. Shout out to This Land. And they go like really in depth, but we're going to give you like some good, fast facts and some things that you probably didn't know was going on with the Native American communities and the tribes here. Because I don't know if you guys knew this, but like we don't take good care of Indigenous and Native American people. I didn't know if you guys knew that.
I don't know if you guys are aware, but Indigenous people aren't treated very well.
Yeah,
in most continents, to be real.
It's right. It's not just an American ideal to treat our Indigenous peoples like shit. Yeah. You know, there was this general. Oh God! Back in the 1800s, I believe, General Custer. Do you know about General Custer? Who he took he won so many medals and shit. He was like the youngest general ever.
So disgusting.
He like attacked Native women and children. Like that was his tactic to take over their lands, was to kidnap and attack, hurt Native women and children, and basically.
Yeah. What a man, right?
Yeah, that hasn't ended like that. And his strategy always worked. We've called him a genius because obviously that strategy worked because it was inhumane and
yeah, because you're a white man with automatic weapons and you come and attack women and children of an indigenous tribe. What a genius technique. He always wins.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
They did. Yeah. So that technique has not died, basically. That technique to separate children from Native American tribes, families is still going on today, and that's exactly what we're talking about. So taking children has been one strategy for terrorizing Native families for centuries, and from the mass removal of Native children from their communities into boarding schools to their widespread adoption and fostering out to mostly white families. It's what led to the passage of the Indian Child Welfare Act, or NICWA, and we're going to be talking a lot about NICWA, so that's what it stands for, in 1978. And I'm so embarrassed. I had no idea about
I
NICWA.
didn't either. And you know, side note, I would love to do an episode later on the Native American boarding schools, because I had no idea how messed up that program was, and I had no idea how disturbing that entire situation is and what was actually happening. Because when I was little, I heard about that. I heard about one. We knew people. We have a family in Phoenix, and then we knew somebody who. I just remember hearing, "Oh, there's a boarding school here. It's a Native American boarding school," and that I didn't think anything of it, and I didn't know. It stuck in my mind, obviously, because I was like, interesting, a boarding school, and it's all Native Americans. But I knew nothing about it until, literally it was last year. I think you and I were talking about the history of that and why it started and what was actually happening culturally, why those were instigated. And it's so disturbing. I think that's a separate episode all its own, but
100%.
I want to do more research too, but I'm encouraging people to look that up.
And to get like maybe definitely like an expert more than all brains.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. And ICWA, it's basically a touchstone legislation that aimed to reverse more than a century of state-sponsored family separation. And there's and we're going to go into the reasons why that. There's a lot of ways that we've attacked the Native communities. And I talked about the podcast called This Land, and in the latest season, they had a Cherokee journalist, Rebecca Nagel, shout out to her. She did such amazing work talking about this. And she showed how corporate lawyers and right-wing think tanks like the Cato Institute have teamed up with non-native families to not only dismantle NICWA, but the entire legal structure protecting native rights. And so far, they've made
Great.
small but important victories. And maybe that's why it's not talked about enough. Because they're like little itty bitty cracks in NICWA, basically. But the fact that they're even happening is so horrifying, that we're letting these families get away with it. So,
because people don't know.
Yeah. So last April of this year, an appeals court upheld parts of a federal district court decision in a case called Brackeen. It's a family called the Brackeens versus Haaland. And Deb Haaland, Haaland, I believe it's pronounced. She's the secretary of, I forget. I'm terrible.
She represents the tribes, right?
No, I'm going to look this up right now so I don't mess this up.
And a brief interlude.
Brief interlude. Okay. She is this, I was going to say interior, but that's not right, but it is. Secretary of the Interior.
Okay.
And she is Native American as well. She's from the Navajo country and county in Arizona.
Okay.
She's amazing. But basically, it's Brackeen versus Haaland. And this appeals court found parts of NICWA unconstitutional. The non-Indian
reasoning just like infuriates me.
Yeah. The non-Indian plaintiffs contend that federal protections to keep Native children from Native families constitute illegal racial discrimination.
To keep them with Native families.
Yeah. Yes. To keep Native children with Native families constitute illegal racial discrimination against white people, essentially, and that NICWA's federal standards commandeer state courts and agencies for a federal agenda, but plainly that mostly white families wanting to foster and adopt Native children are claiming reverse racism and arguing that federal overreach is trampling states' rights. We've all heard that one before, right? Trampling states' rights. Two code words frequently associated with dismantling anti-racist policies. Like, no fucking shit.
Anytime white people claim reverse racism, there's no hope.
There's no fucking hope.
To say, honestly, like, can you imagine there's a program in place meant to keep Native children with their parents and their tribes, and then these white people come along like, it's racist that we can't adopt them, that you can't take them out from under their tribe and their family members, because this also there's like a hierarchy, right, in Native tribes where if the parents can't take care of the children, it goes to extended family.
Yes, that's exactly what NICWA does. Exactly. Mm-hmm. It goes to in the family, in the exact family of if the parents can't do it. And if not the family, then it goes to their tribe. And if not the tribe, then it goes to another tribe. And that's what happened here. Another tribe was trying to so the Brackeens wanted to adopt because they got a calling from God
that's what they said.
Yeah, to adopt. Yeah, to extend their family. They had a calling from God to adopt, and they got a call saying that there was a baby that needed like immediate fostering. Mm-hmm. And they took care of the baby, but they were also told that about the whole process with how there's another tribe that could take care of this, could claim this child essentially.
They have
and
rights.
After 9 months of that other tribe trying to basically take care and get the baby, the Brackeens filed. They're like, no, this baby belongs with us because he's used to us. And there's so many things, right? You can have empathy for someone taking care of a baby for 9 months to a year, which is where they're and bonding, of course. But when you have to educate yourself on the Native American policies, You are just completely centering yourself. You're in your own universe,
Yeah.
and you are the only, you know, you're not the only people that can take care of this child. And
No,
the
and
fact that you
also
didn't do your research is not there. No one's fucking fault but your own.
it's incredibly disrespectful, and it's also it's
Yes.
so egocentric because at the
Yeah.
end of the day, you know, you're saying, "Oh, I bonded with this baby. It knows us. Of course, this should be ours." And then knowing that like you said, not doing your research about the way that it works within the tribe is disrespectful. Then someone tells you how it works, and then you decide to fight against it
Like,
is
nah.
incredibly disrespectful. But on top of that, you're clearly not even considering what this child's life will look like, could look like in either scenario. You're not even
Exactly.
understanding. And I understand it's a beautiful thing and it can really work out in great ways for interracial adoptions. That's not like that should
Mhm.
never happen. However, there's an insane amount of education and research I believe that needs to be done, and awareness that needs to be had, and preparation for these conversations and this life that this child is going to have raised in a home in a culture that doesn't resemble themselves or where they came from. And that's really a really dangerous line to walk, and they're not even considering that. They're just in
Nope.
the ego of, we had a calling from God to adopt. We've fostered this baby for 9 months, baby who's not even like
Mm-hmm.
a 6-year-old who's going to really remember you, but
Mm-hmm,
you're just
mm-hmm.
in your own ego.
It's so insane too, because it's not only I had a calling from God, so I have an entitlement because of
Yes.
my God, but I have an
Yes.
entitlement because reverse racism, because I'm being discriminated against. So
Yes,
now I'm
to
even
turn it, you're the victim. That's the biggest thing
exactly.
that's the biggest like irony in white supremacy, is that it turns around to, well, we are the victim.
Yeah.
I'm being discriminated against because I'm white. This is reverse racism. I'm not even allowed to. When the systems that are put in place that they're fighting against were put in place because of racism. Why do you think there has to be a mandate that the tribes have, like that? These are the steps that it goes through with the child.
Yeah.
Before it is offered up to anybody else to adopt. Why do you think that is? That's because of racism. That's because of colonialism. That's that's why those things exist. So then for white people to come in and say that is racist is the most convoluted vision of why these systems are in place.
It's like, it's one thing to feign like ignorance and be like, oh, well, I didn't know about their cultures, but like, I just bonded with this child. But to then go the step ahead and be like, no, you're discriminating against me. I have absolutely no fucking sympathy for you. That's done at this point, especially because there is a tribe that wants to take care of this child.
And in this case, Brackeen versus Haaland, Brackeens are fighting for themselves. They're defending themselves and claiming themselves to be the victims. But Haaland, the other side, is centering the baby, because this is about the baby. But the Brackeens are making it about them.
Exactly.
And that's how you know it's already not, you're not even fighting the same fight. You're fighting for your own ego and your own race versus fighting for this child who is at the center of this.
Yeah. It is so fucking bullshit. Also, like, spoiler alert, they won. Like, they won on a state level to adopt this boy. And I won't spoil what else happens with this family, but it continues. But basically, they want to fight on a federal level because they want to fight for all the families, which are all white evangelical families that get a calling from God to adopt. And this is also, it sheds light on how fucked up the adoption industry is in this country, like, let alone to the Native American community.
Yeah,
like,
it's very dangerous.
It's so dangerous how we treat children. And like, I just saw, did you see the 2020 or any clips of the Turpin family? Do you remember the Turpin family from California? No. So basically it was like 12 kids that were being locked and chained up in their parents' house for their entire, it was like, the oldest was like 29.
What?
They're emaciated. It was like a fucked up torture hell. Yeah. And a 17-year-old managed to escape and call the cops, and that's how it all, ended. But there was like I think the youngest was 10 months or to a year or something, and I could be wrong, but a baby. and the oldest was 29. It was like a freak
Wow.
fucking couple who.
When was this?
I think 2018 was when they were discovered, but 2 of the sisters just went on 2020 to talk about it. And
Whoa.
what's fucking this story is insane, and it'll be quick. But basically, of course, the parents had a calling from God to have all these babies, and treat them like shit. Literally, just insane abuse. But
for about 30 years, because they did.
Oh yeah, for about 30 years.
Oldest child,
and no one knew because they would move around all the time. What is coming out is right now is that another reason I can't believe that no one's really talking about this as much as they should, is that there was so much outreach and love sent to and money sent to this family, the siblings, when this broke out in the news. And these kids
to the kids.
There was hundreds of thousands of dollars raised for the siblings, right? But it's come out now that I forget what state they're in. Shit, I forget what the state they're in. Oh, California. I'm done. This is Riverside County. Dumb. They have no access to their funds. The youngest children in the family have been jumped around from foster home to foster home, have been abused by their foster families.
What?
Since leaving their original abusive home with their biological parents. So they're being re-abused and re-traumatized in the system right now. And for some reason, don't have access to their money. The older kids are trying to I just learned how to ride a bike. I want to buy a bike so I can go have a job. And they won't even give them the money to ride a bike.
Who has
to buy
the
a
money?
bike? The county. So it's so insane. And ABC News, from 2020, when they were interviewing, they couldn't believe it. They were trying to interview people from the county about it that were supposed to be taking care of these kids. And they're like, no comment. Blah, blah, blah. So now ABC News is suing the county to get access to the records to see what's going on, why they not giving them access, and to gain access to the funds. It's the fact that they're being re-traumatized and re-abused. One of the girl that called 911 is yeah, I don't really have a home right now. They're fucking homeless. She's going on couches and stuff. She's like friends. Yeah, that's how fucked up the system is. So that's why
it's so twisted.
It's another reason why it's the pro-lifers. It's just a bullshit fucking argument because this is what we're fighting for. You're fighting for a system that fails children on all accounts. And this is white children here.
Yeah.
Let alone.
Because you're not pro-life, you're pro-birth. And being pro-choice is actually just being pro-quality of life, because this is the system that a lot of these kids get thrown into. It's
so sad. It doesn't make any sense. So if these white children are unprotected and can be re-traumatized, what do you think these Native American children are going to be, how they're going to be treated? So court records show that 2 of the 3 non-Indian families in Brackeen, basically the Brackeens are also fighting for these other white families, have successfully fostered or adopted Native children despite NICWA protection. So they're winning. And with tribes agreeing to the adoption. Tribes are but they still claim discrimination. It doesn't matter. They're still winning, but they're still claiming discrimination.
So the tribes are allowing them to adopt, and
they have no choice. They have no choice.
But so the tribes are, saying okay, and they're still claiming reverse racism.
Exactly. So that's why they're they want on the state level. What do
they want? They adopted money. They already have the kids.
They want to be able, and this is the thing. They're being backed. We're going to go into it. They're being backed by money, corporations with money, politicians with money who want to dismantle Native American communities for their land.
Yep.
Spoiler alert. So in 2 studies from, this is crazy, from 1969 to 1974, the Association on American Indian Affairs found that 25 to 35% of all Native children have been separated from their families and placed in foster homes or adoptive homes or institutions. 90% of those were sent to non-Indian homes. Okay. And and NICWA's supposed to be a protection. That's how much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say, because then NICWA aimed to reverse this trend. Today, Native children are 4 times more likely to be removed from their families than white children are from theirs. 4 times. 4 times more likely. And according to a 2020 study, in many states, Native family separation has surpassed rates prior to ICWA. This is mostly due to strategies ignoring or flouting ICWA requirements.
Yeah.
States ignoring ICWA requirements.
Well, strategies too.
Yeah, states.
It is a
and
strategy.
States with strategies to ignore ICWA requirements, because
no one gives
it's like a piece of legislation passes, but at the end of the day, it really doesn't mean anything if states decide to ignore it.
Yep.
But you're like, but you can't ignore it. It's a legislation. The legislation passed. Yep. Well, the rules are different if you look different.
Exactly. It's a huge catch-22 for these families and these tribes, because they can't win against these people who are backed with money and God on their side. Because
normally a common cause for removal is neglect, but that is such a vague term that it's like neglect. So a form of abuse and a highly skewed claim, especially when the Native families most targeted are poor. So failure to pay rent, for example, can result in eviction and homelessness and the placement of a child in the state foster care system because of unstable living conditions. Some state statutes may provide up to several thousands of dollars a child per month to foster parents, depending on the number of children in their care and a child's special needs. But why doesn't that money go towards keeping families together by providing homes instead of tearing them apart and giving money to the white foster families who have those kids?
It doesn't make any sense. They're like, nope, we're going to give them to the white foster families instead of building these communities up so they don't have to be
have this money. We have this money. We're just going to give it to the white parents who want to adopt. We're not going to give it to your community to put roofs over your head so we don't have to separate families.
It makes zero fucking sense. And much like the boarding school system which preceded it, foster care is rife with stories of sexual and physical abuse, neglect, like I was just talking about with the Turpin family. And this is the thing with Native children, forced assimilation into dominant white culture, whatever white culture is.
That's what a lot of the boarding schools were doing, is forced assimilation, and they were stripping them of their languages and their culture and their traditions to assimilate them.
It's disgusting to say nothing of the lifetime trauma of being torn from one's family and nation during the formative years of childhood. So why are corporate law firms, so this is basically the money of people, like Gibson Dunn, which has represented Walmart, Amazon, Chevron, Shell, and as a former employer of the far-right Arkansas Senator Tom Cotton, showing up at custody battles to square off with poor Native families and tribes? Are they really interested in welfare of Native children? Let's see.
Exactly.
Are they? Are they a part of this because they care about children? Let's actually think about this.
Yeah, you've represented Walmart, Amazon, Chevron, Shell, and now you're squaring up against impoverished Native families. Why are you here?
Why? Because they want to they want to associate with the Brackeens and help them to bring this to the Supreme Court to overturn ICWA, but also to gut Native tribes' federal protections and rights. Like their counterparts, the anti-critical race crusaders, anti-ICWA advocates use a language of equality to target Native nations. You know what I mean? Like they claim, like we said before,
it's unfair that they have their own, that they have.
Yeah. It doesn't matter what color of our skin. We should adopt this baby. It doesn't matter. We'll have 100%. They have like a TP playroom for, you know what I mean? Like that's their version of having the child be one with their fucking culture. And white congressmen from Western states terminated tribes in the 50s, making the argument that the collective rights of tribes shouldn't trump the individual rights of U.S. citizens. And those results were extremely catastrophic. The legal abolition of dozens of tribes led to privatization of their lands for the benefit of white settlers and businesses. So this has been a practice since the 50s of white money, white wealthy politicians basically just being like, nope, fuck you, fuck any protection, fuck any law that's protecting Native tribes because we want that money. We want that land, honey. We want that land.
This sentence, it's all about the land and the wealth of, because saying collective rights of the tribes shouldn't trump the individual rights of U.S. citizens. First of all,
the fuck?
Yeah. And second of all, the fuck?
The fuck?
Because, I mean, it's so transparent. It's so transparent because that's what it always comes down to the same thing. It's money, power, that is land, that's always what it's about.
Yeah.
And so you're going to just skew it and act like there's no angle that they could take logically when it comes to separating families and children. So the only thing they can angle it to claim that the issue is equality is the most infuriating thing I have ever heard.
And these are the same people that are like, fuck critical race theory. I don't want to learn any of that shit. That's racist. It's like this.
We can't teach children critical race theory. That's racist. But let's talk about reverse racism that white people experience.
It's like you need it the most because obviously you're not privy to the fact that history is repeating itself and that we're raping these people of their lands all over again.
They barely
century
have
after
anything
century.
left.
Nothing.
They barely have anything left.
Nothing. You're taking their lands away, their money away, their protections away, and now their children.
Saying that there's no equality because there are Native American reservations and that's not fair to the private U.S. citizens. What the hell?
So what's happening now? Now, like,
let me. It's unfair. I should have the ability to buy it. Oh, now it's available. I'm buying it, and nobody who has actual rights to this land can have it. That's fair. That's America.
And the Brackeens who won the adoption on their son is now, drum roll, fighting for custody of the boy's half sister. So it's not enough to tear this boy away from these tribes, but now, and it's a Navajo tribe. There's an extended family in this tribe that wants to take care of this sister, that have the means to do so. It doesn't matter. They want her now. So now it's getting even more.
But you know
wild.
they're going to win because the system's already set up for these white evangelical families who just want to adopt the poor Native children. And so now that they have the boy, that they're definitely going to win because then they're just going to argue, well, we don't want to separate him from his
can't separate a family. Come on. Like, look at, I have a pool.
You can't separate half siblings, but you can separate children from their immediate families and their tribes as a whole and their entire culture.
It's cool. So, like he would say, he was like, the Brackeen dad, it was like, well, I'm an engineer. I think he's an engineer or something. He's like, I have the means. I have a pool. I have 8 bedrooms. What can it's not even enough. It's not that like they're claiming they have zero shelter. They have shelter and food for these children. You know what I mean? Like they're not wealthy, and a community
that understands them, that looks like them, that respects them and loves them.
But you have 8 bedrooms for your child to be depressed in because you ripped him from his culture and family, fucking asshole. Anyway,
so from your culture, but have a swim.
Yeah, have a swim about it. Good luck and a Bible study. Yeah. So this is a nightmare scenario for tribal representatives, and that the U.S. Supreme Court, if they agree with the Brackeens and rules that NICWA constitutes racial discrimination and goes on to deem tribal affiliations a racial designation. And if that were to happen, many of the statutes making up American Indian law could be challenged on constitutional grounds. And laws in danger of being overturned include Major Crimes Act, which establishes the role that the federal government plays in law enforcement on Native land, Environmental Protection Agency policies that allow some tribes to ensure that the oil and gas industry, which is a huge reason why these fucking politicians want their land.
Of course. Why do you want the land? What's there?
And they just want environmental regulations over them.
Yeah, environmental regulations.
And federal programs that provide services like welfare or health care to Native Americans. So all of those could be at stake because of what the fucking Brackeens and their like asshole backers are doing.
And, we're talking about how messed up our actual foster and adoption care system is. And this is like, obviously adoption can be a beautiful thing. We're just talking about the system because all systems in this country are set up for racism.
Yes.
Another group vocally opposed to NICWA, vocally opposed, is the adoption industry.
Obviously.
So the adoption industry isn't even like, no, these kids should be, no. Including a huge number of evangelical Christians who want to adopt children, obviously.
Yeah.
Around the turn of the century, celebrity pastors with huge followings began framing adoption as a moral imperative.
Yeah.
And the result of this was a boom in the adoption industry, both domestically and abroad.
Mm-hmm.
A 2013 survey found that practicing Christians are more than twice as likely to adopt than non-Christians, and that American adoptions make up nearly half of all adoptions worldwide.
And it's
Because we are the moral high ground.
Exactly. And don't think that they're doing this because, they want to actually protect children to the degree that they need protections. No, they want to do this so they can colonize. They can use their Bible as a way, as a weapon, essentially, to make sure this child from this country, or this child from this tribe will be welcomed in God's graces, or whatever the fuck they say. You know what I mean?
In your God's graces.
Yeah, it's
let us colonize the children of the world and adopt them and save them and rescue them and take them to this first world whitopia where
it's
everything is better.
It's your run-of-the-mill Christian genocide and colonization. It's the same old tune, boring. Get a new playbook.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just like, go fuck yourself. So with the future of NICWA uncertain, tribes around the country worry about what might happen if Native children lose their special protections. Sarah Kastelik, she's the executive director of the National Indian Child Welfare Association. She was quoted of saying, "The fear is without these protections in place, we know the system continues to be biased. Bias is baked into the policies and safety assessments and you name it. Our fear is that we are going to go back to the pre-ICWA days, the mass removal of our children." So, for an update, the Supreme Court could agree to hear Brackeen versus Haaland in January 2022 at the earliest. So just keep that in mind.
Stay posted.
Yeah, at the earliest, depending on whether any of the parties ask for a month-long extension, if there's an extension, but it could be in January. So, I mean, it's just insane that this is going on, and it's insane, but not surprising, unfortunately.
It's not surprising. It's just another reminder that these things are constantly happening. These systems are in place, and these systems are operating just as they were set up to operate. And the ones that are in the forefront and in the news, we all know about. Thankfully, Black Lives Matter has come to the forefront of society, and people are conscious of that. But Native Americans, Native issues in this country are so under the radar.
Yeah.
They're just completely, and
they're voiceless.
They're, completely voiceless. And it's just, I don't know, it's appalling, and it's really disturbing. And it's, I think, up to all of us to continue to educate ourselves. I learned a lot from this case. I didn't know about this until you told me about it. And it's like, I don't know. I think that the more we commit to educating ourselves about these issues and having these discussions, you don't have to be an expert on something to start a discussion with your families about it, because you don't have to come and, I just learned about this and it's an interesting thing. And you brought it up to me, and then I could bring it up to my parents. I don't have all the answers, not bring it up to them as as an authority on the subject, but hey guys, I just learned about this. What do you think? And we all talk about it. Those are important things in people's families that need to, white families especially, that need to be done, because there are a lot of good people in this world who just don't know anything that's going on. And if they did, they might do something about it, and they might not. And then that's a whole other problem, but people are ignorant. They don't know. Yeah.
Share this story with everybody, please. This is a horrible precedent that's being made here.
Yeah.
And to sit back and allow history to repeat itself. I mean, you don't have to. Basically, we have a charity nonprofit that if you want to do something, this is a way to do it. So it's the National Indian Child Welfare Association, NICWA. NICWA works to support the safety, health, and spiritual strength of American Indian and Alaska Native children, along with broad continuum of their lives. They support tribes in building the capacity to prevent child abuse and neglect through positive systems at the state, federal, and tribal levels. They're the most comprehensive source of information on American Indian and Alaska Native child welfare. welfare. NICWA is a nonprofit membership organization that's based in Portland. Their members include tribes, individuals, both Native and non-Native, and private organizations from around the U.S. concerned with Native child and family issues. Together, their partners, board, staff work to protect Native children and keep them connected to their family, community, and culture. So to learn more and donate, please visit NICWA, NICWA.org. And you can donate there. You can be more active in this story and the case that's happening if you're feeling useless and depressed about this case, because
Yeah, and also like, you know, for people in your life, it's also creative gift giving, like holiday season, you know, you make a donation in someone's name, and that's just, obviously we've all heard of that being done, but that's very significant. It's a very significant thing to do. And if you have people in your lives that feel as strongly as you do about these issues, or, you know, this is a great way to do good and, you know, and support in the holiday season as well.
Absolutely.
So follow us on IG and Twitter at the SOS Pod. Subscribe, rate, review on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, Google, and more. Reviews, especially on Apple Podcasts, really help us jump up in the algorithm and more people can discover us. So that's important. We're on Patreon. So if you want to become a member, 2022 is going to be lit. $3 a month, $7 a month, or $11 a month. And you get bonus content. You can request episode topics. You'll get deals on exclusive merch.
Exclusive, amazing, gorgeous merch.
Yes.
And handwritten notes from yours truly.
Yes, exactly. Perfumed note cards.
Perfumed note cards.
I'm Molly Cottrell.
I'm Melissa Rosano.
Here's to turning meltdowns
into magic.